Hello and welcome to Pathways, where you are invited to join me for a visit with leaders in personal development and cultural evolution. This is your host, Paul O'Brien. A growing number of people are facing unprecedented challenges in the job market, and they long to experience joy, creativity, and authenticity at work. For those who are burned out, stressed out, dealing with a toxic boss, or otherwise seeking refuge from the storms of corporate America, our guest today offers hope. In her new book, she shows how to free yourself from harmful workplace patterns, set healthy boundaries, and release the negative energy that has been holding you back. Our guest is Mandy Tang, author of Heal Your Career Wounds, Navigating the Trauma of Today's Workplace. A career coach and holistic healer, Mandy helps clients from big tech, startups, and the nonprofit sector to bring more creativity and joy into their work lives. Her training includes an MBA in finance from Columbia, certification as a trauma-informed yoga instructor, and completion of a 3-year shamanic practitioner program. Hello, Mandy, and welcome to the Pathway Show.
Hi, it's great to meet you.
Well, why don't we start by asking you how your book "Heal Your Career Wounds" came to be? What motivated you to write it?
I've been a coach in private practice working one-on-one with clients for about 8 years now, and I love the work. I love working with people, hearing their stories, hearing what they're going through, and, you kinda meet with people one-on-one, and it's a closed private session, but I started to see um, patterns in the way that people would think or the way that they would, manage stress. And it kind of felt like, oh, it would be really cool to talk about this and to share with other people who I'm not coaching, but just kind of share with the general public, um, what I'm seeing as a coach to make people feel less alone. So in like 2022, I think I started posting on TikTok. And I just started sharing things that I was seeing in sessions and giving people advice. And, I'd have a coaching session and then I'd get off the session and I'd flip up my camera and just say, hey guys, if you're experiencing this, it's very normal. And, here are some of the challenges you might be facing and here's ways that you can navigate. So I did a lot of content around like problem solution, right? Um,
Hmm.
and from there, the account grew. And I realized I was like, oh, I'm really giving voice to something that feels very palpable and real and like people are facing. And so, as a coach, like you just want to help. You just want to
Yeah,
make
that makes
people,
sense.
yeah.
That makes total sense. The subtitle of your book's "Navigating the Trauma of Today's Workplace." Do you think work these days is more traumatic than it's been in the past?
I wouldn't say it's more, but I think that I think we put more expectation on what work will provide us.
Uh-huh.
So I think we expect it to be, especially I'd say like younger generation, it becomes more of an identity, right? Like, I'm gonna follow my calling, I'm gonna follow my passion and somehow, not only does it have to be my passion, but it also has to be mission aligned to like what I believe in. Um, and it's how we spend most of our time. So I think that we've just given more weight to it than before. Um, So I don't necessarily think it's getting any objectively worse. I just think that we are probably more isolated as a society, and so work has more control over us in general.
And maybe we're being more perfectionistic about this whole idea of having a lofty calling or making $1 billion by the time we're 30. I wrote a book called Intuitive Intelligence, and I recommended that people not make lifetime commitments until they were 30. Try things, job hop, experiment, see what you love, see what you're good at. People are in such a hurry to achieve these days. And so, what demographic is your book most suited for?
I would say that probably a lot of the clients that I see and a lot of people who are buying the book are probably like 30s and 40s. So I
Right.
feel like mid-career.
Uh-huh.
I think like if you're just out of college, you probably don't have as many career wounds just yet. But yeah, I'd say like 30s and 40s is probably the sweet spot.
Okay. And how has your shamanic training helped your career coaching?
Well, I think the shamanic training is a practice where you're bringing things from the unseen world to the seen world, right? You are that as a practitioner, you are that um communicator and that translator between, things that aren't necessarily in ordinary reality. And so I think because I've done so much shamanic practice, my ability to spot things and to see things that, read between the lines, just read a person's emotion really. It's everything. I think that it has really honed my intuitive skills, which I
Right.
think is the primary thing that I do as a coach is use my intuition.
Okay. Well, your book is so comprehensive. I mean, it's a wonderful overview of our
Thank you.
situation, or anybody's situation who's working for a living. But why don't we break down what are the biggest problems that your book addresses that you see in your coaching?
I'd say big ones are burnout, imposter syndrome, perfectionism is a big one if you're like a high achiever.
Right.
Um, Comparing yourself to other people. So especially like in today's day and age, right? Like everyone's on LinkedIn and every time someone gets a promotion or changes a job, you can see it.
Yeah. You
So
talk about the pitfall of making comparisons all the time. Boy, social media really fuels that one.
yeah, I mean it's just it's very visible and you're seeing everybody's wins, right?
Yeah,
So
that's all you're seeing too.
that's all you're seeing, and so I think a lot in my coaching practice, a lot of what I would try to tell people is just like, "You're not seeing the full picture, like, trust me, everybody is stressed out, everybody feels like they're not good enough, like, we're only seeing the highlight reel, so don't be fooled." Like
Imposter syndrome is a very interesting phenomenon. I think I would guess that that is more of a factor with people that are a little further along in their career path.
yeah, I mean, I've seen it at all stages, and I think it's a very natural thing, I think it's, um, this feeling of being watched and this feeling of, I don't have necessarily the qualification, that I should have, and at any moment, someone's gonna find me out and pop the bubble and, like, expose me.
That's so funny because I often would say, I've never been qualified for any job I ever got, but I could tread water long enough and learn it before I got fired. That was basically my strategy. So, I can totally relate to that insecurity about being qualified enough. I think women have even more of an issue with that because I'm just amazed at how far women will go in terms of like getting this degree and this advanced degree and that next degree. It's like they never have enough, to feel confident about their ability. Or am I projecting? I don't know. It's
No,
just
I
an
mean, I think that there's, I mean, I would say across all genders, what I'm seeing is people feeling like, "I need another certification," you
right,
know?
right, exactly. Yeah.
Like, "Do I need to go back to school? Do I need to go get this, you know, project management certification?" Like, it's always another certification. And Uh, I mean, there maybe 10% of the time it's like, "No, no, you actually do need this to do your job." Like, you do need, like, a if you're an accountant, right? Like, maybe you do need a specific series, whatever thing. But for the most part, I'm always telling people, like, that's just your brain trying to protect you and trying to make you feel better. I don't actually think you need that. I think you just need to, like, start doing the job and, like, learn on the job. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with desire for self-improvement. It's a lifetime project for me. But I always thought, school is the slowest way to learn anything. Very self-educated. I think people, but anyway, credentials go a long ways, especially in terms of interviewing and getting hired. Um, they seem to make a difference. Um, Otherwise, people wouldn't fake it. But what is the achievement trap? And I think that's what we've been touching on here a little bit. How does that related to what we go through in childhood?
Yeah, I mean, I think like um no matter what you're pursuing, like no matter what your background is, whether you're a scientist or a writer or a teacher, right? Like we all kind of want the same things. We want to feel um connected to our work. We want to feel like we're making a difference. And I think there's a lot of pressure early on to choose something. Like you have to get on a track and then you have to do
I
that.
know. I'm totally against that. As a college dropout,
Yeah.
I should add.
I mean, I'm neutral about it, but personally in my like neutral for my clients, I'm like, you do you. But for me personally, I believe in like breaking stuff and like just going all over and like doing whatever. Like that's just been my personal journey too. Like I have
Right.
not followed a clear path. Um but I think the achievement trap is that, you know, you're somehow going to feel better or more validated the more you achieve. Like the
Yeah.
more you acquire, the more titles you get, the more promotions you get, the more money you make, that somehow the pain of being human will decrease. And
We used yeah. We used to call that the rat race.
yeah, it's the same.
Right. So you point out in your book that high achievers are often the most quietly damaged by their work. Why is that?
So to become a high achiever, so to be someone who is you know, doing well than doing quote unquote better than other people, you have to have a very high pain tolerance. Right?
Right.
Like, you just have to be good at suffering more. Like, because you're just working longer and you're doing more than other people. And it's that same ability to take on pain that it's the same muscle that makes you less likely to ask for help, that makes you less likely to admit that things are hard. You know, I'll just keep doing it. And it's also this guilt thing. It's like, well, if I don't do it, no one else can do it as good as me. And so I'll just take it all on. And you know, let me just finish one more project. So I I kind of wrote that because I just wanted I don't know, I feel a lot of empathy for those people who really do a lot of heroics at work and they're just like putting in crazy hours and bending over backwards to like fix everything for everyone and I just feel bad because I don't think there's anyone like checking on them, you know?
Right. You know, you point out how hustle culture, you call it, has trained us to ignore emotional injury to ourselves and call it resilience. That's pretty much what you're talking about, I think.
Well, I think, you know, and this is probably my shamanic training, but you know, if you go on YouTube and you type in like productivity or work success, you're going to see a lot of, frankly, men who are talking about how you have to basically like man up and push through it and just like a lot of masculine terminology and I don't think that's like a harmonious approach. I think you'll burn out. Um, in fact, I know you'll burn out because I've coached like thousands of people that exactly follow that advice, and it's like the bro hustle culture. I don't know. I think it's kind of outdated.
You know, I've read somewhere that corporate business, is a patriarchal construct to begin with. It's kind of militaristic, hierarchical. I think the women's greater entry into the workplace has democratized it to some extent and has made it a more broad, flatter structure. Do you agree with that?
Think that yeah, it has, but also it's still highly unequal, and also women who succeed tend to take on a lot of the militaristic
Yeah,
characteristics.
right.
And so in a way, in order to succeed in traditional corporate America, there is a way that you have to be, and I don't think that's healthy.
No,
Um, And I don't think that's sustainable, and I also don't think it's, like, correct. There are studies that show that, like, female leaders produce better results than male leaders, right?
No.
So, you know, traditionally, yeah, it's completely a patriarchy-led corporate culture, and
You
that's
know,
large part
yeah,
of the problem.
I've also read that part of the reason that there are such a small percentage of CEOs are women, and same thing in law firms is a small percentage become partners, is because they're just not willing to give up their life for their career success like men are. Men are conditioned to, you know, go to war and, work 60-hour weeks and sacrifice their emotional life and their family life. And, I think there's a lot of truth in that. I mean, why would anybody want to take that on? It's just our whole way of looking at things. This greedy capitalistic culture is so toxic. Um, anyway, it seems to me.
Well, I also think that the reason that men can detach and get to the top is because they typically do have a woman at home who is doing the emotional and physical labor of the
Right.
household.
Right. Yeah. No,
And
for sure.
and I think that women are just as ambitious. Women are just as wired for to reach the top. Um, but I think that there are social structures in place that are preventing that from happening. I also think that there aren't a lot of examples of defining success on your own terms.
Yeah. Most of the women that are famous for being powerful or leaders of state are just extremely masculine, like Margaret Thatcher, or I can think of a number of examples, or like who was that woman, Elizabeth, somebody who did Theranos. Oh my God, she was she
Oh,
just
Elizabeth Holmes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, she was so masculine, or tried to be so masculine, pretending as she was Steve Jobs. I mean, yeah, it's too bad that our culture is so is so patriarchal, especially now under the Trump regime and the tech bros. And, hopefully this is gonna that culture is gonna crash like it should and open up to a more humanistic way of living and
Yeah.
working, you know.
Yeah.
So what should a person do? I mean, you're a coach. Let's say I have a toxic boss, and I've had them before. So how can you cope, or do you just have to leave? Is it just time to move on?
Well, it's pretty nuanced, but I would say it's first you have to like be very honest about your own boundaries and like how is this person making you feel, and have you made a concerted effort to communicate with them and understand their perspective, and have you put in the work to like try, right? um I think what I'm interested in as a coach is helping people understand their own patterns so that they don't repeat the same mistakes, right?
Right.
Of course,
Hmm.
if you quit, like it'll be better, because you won't be in the day to day with this like toxic person. But how do we make sure you don't just fall into the same exact situation in your next job, right?
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. Yeah. So, you go into different kinds of permission, and I love the way that your approach is so much oriented towards the employee and to their own self-management and self-care. And so there's these different kinds of permission that you advise people to give themselves. Like, for instance, the permission to create distance. What does that mean?
we're so wired to just do whatever corporate daddy says. Like we just want to be so good and we want to be praised and we want to be the hardest worker and all of that kind of trappings of success, right? That we just blindly say yes to everything. And obviously this is a generalization, right? You could have different archetypes and things, but for the most part, if you're experiencing burnout, it's probably just because you haven't like don't say no. Like, yes, I'll take that project on. Yes, let me help with that. Oh, you need that report? Let me pull that for you. Oh, you need me on a last minute call? Sure, let me leave family dinner and come hop on, right?
Right, right.
Because work becomes the most important thing. So the permissions part is just a it's hopefully a like a wake up call for people to be like, "Hey, you don't have to do that." Like
Right.
you can have permission to not respond to that email until the morning.
Right. Yeah,
And
and that's kind of related to your other permissions that you talk about, like the permission to be in conflict, rather than just avoiding conflict at all costs, and the permission to say no, which a lot of people have a really hard time with, like, as you just expressed. Um, you know, but this is all has to do with internalizing our self-efficacy, our
Mhm.
self, our competence, our own confidence in our own competence. How do you help somebody internalize that?
That's the work, right? So the work is moving from a model where everything is external to you. Like, I'm only good if I hit these certain KPIs, or I'm only worthy if I make this much money or have this title, to inverting that and being like, no, actually, you're in the driver's seat. You get to determine your own self worth. And the reason why this work is really important is because, like tons of people are getting laid off right now and their identities are being stripped, right? Like, oh, I was a software engineer making six figures at Meta one day, and then the next day, no, you're not, right? You've been laid off. And so there's so much involuntary stripping of people's identities and security that I think it's really like in this moment, it's really important for us to practice validating ourselves and coming up with our own sense of purpose and like not letting a boss or a company or an institution tell you that you're good.
Right. You know, you talk about how getting laid off wounds a person's identity, even if it's framed as not personal. But it seems to me that it's worse than ever now, especially you mentioned Meta, and I could think of other companies like Amazon or Tesla. I mean,
All of them, yeah.
AI is impacting people's ability to be employed. Is that not true? You don't talk about AI in your book, but it's so topical. I have to ask you.
Yeah, I think that's really true, and I think it's also a mixed bag because I think that when companies like big tech companies are saying, "Oh, we're doing all these layoffs because of I mean, the truth is they need to increase their profitability. They need to cut out expenses so they can invest that money in AI. We're essentially in an AI race right now,
Yeah,
right?
that's
And
right.
also, if you think about these big tech companies, because AI is so new, it's a race for talent. So it's OpenAI versus Anthropic, put like seeing who they can hire to get the best people on the team, the best engineers on the team to build these technologies, right?
Yeah.
So when they say like, "Oh, you're being laid off because it's not that your position is being taken by AI. It's that your company is terrified they're going to lose the AI race, and
Right.
they're cutting everything that they deem to be not non-essential so they can pour money into AI." Is I think what's happening.
And it's making everything worse in terms of like our daily living, I mean, try to get customer service these days. I'm tired of talking to chat bots. It's not very satisfying. It's very
Yeah,
frustrating, you
yeah.
know. It's just yeah, it's incredible. And then these guys, like these tech bro titans of industry, they want to eliminate human labor. I think they want slavery. They're going to have the army of robot slaves, and there's no consideration for the common person or for people that need jobs. They're not saying, okay, we'll pay higher taxes so that we can divvy it up. Let the robots' profitability spread across the spectrum. No, they're
No.
not saying. They might say BS things like. oh, we'll have to come up with a universal basic income. Like Elon Musk talks about, hey, yeah, Elon, you and what government? The one that you've been trying to destroy? It's just ridiculous. But anyway, don't get me going. Hey, well, you know, we've only got another minute, so I'm just going to ask you to close the conversation with maybe, some piece of advice for our audience, most of whom are employed or want to be
Yeah.
employed.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that time is your greatest asset, right? And so thinking about your relationship with time, how you spend your time, where you spend your time is going to dictate everything. And if there's a way for you to take back some of that for yourself so that you can rest and integrate or build a new skill or do something more creative, that's going to be the thing that saves you, really.
Right. Well, Mandy, it's been a pleasure talking with you. And I really want to thank you for being on our show today. And I want to encourage our listeners to buy your book and read it. And also, I want to tell them about your website, which is www.mandytang.co. And that Mandy Tang is MANDYTANG, all one word, .co, .com. And I'm sure that they can find all about your book and other work that you offer the world. And I want to thank you for doing that. And for those who may be listening to Pathways Live on a Sunday morning and have tuned in late, this is your host, Paul O'Brien, producer of the Visionary I Ching Oracle, an app that supports great decisions and perfect timing. And we're so glad you are with us today. And please note that you have the ability to review hundreds of interviews in our online archive at divination.com. Now, you can play and share this particular program whenever you want via the internet or as a free podcast, and I'll tell you how in a minute. Today, we have been visiting with Mandy Tang, author of Heal Your Career Wounds, Navigating the Trauma of Today's Workplace. And I want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of you listeners for tuning into Pathways, which is currently broadcast on KBOO FM in Portland, Oregon. You can get a free subscription to our podcast, which you can also find at divination.com. That's spelled DIVI nation.com, or by searching Pathways Radio on YouTube, where you can give us a thumbs up and subscribe. So, in any case, feel free to forward a link to your friends. And this is Paulo bidding you adieu and reminding you to tell your friends about Pathways podcasts. And thanks again to Mandy Tang and to all of you listeners for tuning in and being a part of the Pathways conversation.